To be here because if you notice, the very first thing you see is we're not where we've been in the last times we've been doing this. So Roxanne and I have been playing with new technologies for the last 20 minutes. We have arrived. Let me just move this around. Let's see if that's better. That's better. So it's nice to be here. There's lots of changes going on. There's lots of interesting things going on. We've gotten a lot of emails from you, a lot of questions from you. Quite a few of you played in that the law of attraction doesn't really work webinar that we did earlier this week, 2 parts. That was really good. And maybe the law of attraction does work, as we kind of ended up. But there's a lot of questions about that. There's a lot of questions about how do I begin to manage myself? I'm noticing the world's off balance, and I'm interested in kind of navigating from a much better field. So rather than spending a lot of time right here kind of explaining where the world's going, because it's kind of in a very fascinating place right now, lots of changes, really big changes are unfolding, most of which you'll never see until they happen. A lot of that is at major levels of the world, like governments, world financial systems, military systems. You simply don't have access to that information. And so, but it trickles down. And so when it trickles down, how do I deal with it? I'm seeing the trickling down beginning to start. I'm seeing kind of the questionable things that are sitting, lurking in front of me. What do I do about it? So 2 things coming up at the end of the year, December webinar that we're doing. It's going to be how do you manage your intuition and how do you simply allow it to guide you, given 2023 coming up. So we'll spend some time there in December. But right now, let's just deal with some questions because there are so many of them that come in. I think we can answer a lot of the pieces in that format. So, Roxanne, do you exist? That's a big technology question. Oh, maybe I have to click on something here to make it exist over here. This could be a disaster.
Okay. We are having a...
I can hear you.
Okay, we're having a challenge here, and I have Allie on the line and Carol on the line. And it appears as though we're streaming, and only Justine can see us on Facebook. And then Allie could see us, but not hear us. And Carol is saying, you're on. So, okay, now I think it's working. Is that true, Allie? Okay, more people are typing, so somehow it worked its way out. Okay, bye.
Actually, while we're determining that it's actually working or not, one of the things that we're doing is we're changing. Just to kind of fill some space here for a few minutes. We're changing. We're recognizing that we have a lot of information that's available, and we think we can repackage it in a way that makes it more available and more accessible to you. So in the coming weeks, one of the things that's going to happen, and literally in the coming weeks, the website is going to change. It's going to start to be presented differently. It's going to give you more choices, more opportunities. And how we're packaging programs is going to change. That should make it both more comfortable financially and a much greater range of work that is available really very much to everybody. And then the third piece of it that's in a lot of ways the most important is we're going to build a community model. So we've been talking about community. You've all been asking for community. It's like I'm lonely. I want to talk to people. I want to get more information. I want to have more conversation. And so that platform of community is going to be built, and it's going to be built in a way that you can begin to create your own conversations. I'd like to talk about the eighth ray in level 2, and I want to understand it more. Does anybody have any information, etc., etc.? So I think that's going to be valuable. One of the questions we get is, I'm interested in people in my area so I can hang out, talk to, begin to have more relationship. And so we're going to define it in such a way that you can begin to identify people in your immediate area who are playing in Mastering Alchemy. So we're kind of excited about that. I think it's going to work well. And just like today, there's going to be little bumps in the road as we kind of move through this. But so people are playing with us, very knowledgeable, very successful. Some of the videos you're going to start to see, some of the little pieces on social media. People are putting that together, have built things for Microsoft and Amazon and companies like that. So, and they're Mastering Alchemy people. They're involved in Mastering Alchemy. And so I think you're going to start to see some fascinating things. So, Roxanne.
It's working.
Hi, Roxanne. Okay, so as soon as she gets back to her desk, let's see if we can ask and answer some questions. Again, a lot of questions around law of attraction, a number of questions around duality, which was last month's kind of workshop. We're going to begin to put those into a format where we're doing them every month in a way that talks about specific topics. Next month, November, some of those spiritual abilities you have, how are you using them? Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, telepathies. You use them all day long, but do you recognize them? And then if you recognize them, could I begin to navigate my life differently? So that's the November workshop. So, Roxanne, you have time to get back to your computer. And I don't hear you.
That's because I was muted. Oh, I'm still figuring out how to push these buttons. So you would like me to ask questions, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Good.
Okay, so this one, do you want to see me? Should I be seen?
I like seeing you, but I don't know that you have to be.
I will try this. Let's see if it works. Okay.
I see your desk. It's hey, much improved over the desk.
The first question is from Carrie. I took your law of attraction class, which was last week. You mentioned that if we focus on well-being and everything unlike it will fall away, what if someone has a history of trauma that's stored in the body, and the body has a long pattern of being in fight or flight? This seems to make it more difficult to really feel and sustain the feeling of well-being. How do we release these from the cells?
So your statement is really correct. Hard to get rid of that. So the whole purpose of Mastering Alchemy is, how do I get rid of that? How do I clear those patterns of discomfort emotionally and mentally that actually lead into physical discomforts? So the process of how we got here really starts spiritually. I'm in well-being. I'm happy. Somebody insults me. I drop into my mental process, like, oh, why did they say that? But immediately an emotion comes. This isn't good. And the process mechanically is, and then you repeat it over and over. I'm not okay. They don't like me. I don't fit. This isn't good. And you build this whole electromagnetic field that, if it's allowed to continue, eventually begins to be more uncomfortable, more out of ease, more in a state of dis-ease, and then the hyphen between dis and ease goes away, and I've created disease. Well, let's back out of that. I've created an irritation, an inflammation, a discomfort. My body's not working correctly. So it's a really clear process of how we got here. So the question is, how do I get out of here? So dealing with an emotion over the last 50 years has been go to therapy. And therapy, plus or minus, works. But mostly it's an intellectual process trying to get at an emotion. And basically the body says, I didn't like that the first time. I don't really want to deal with it the second time. So in Mastering Alchemy and the tools, particularly in level 2, all of these constructs, if you can shift your point of reference you can begin to look at things slightly differently. You begin to get a different opportunity to release some of those patterns. And when you play in the construct of starting to recognize one thing for specific time, everybody assumes time is simply linear. Time is past, present, future, and then I die. But what if it wasn't? What if the past, which is fixed forever and ever in that 3D game, what if it wasn't fixed? What if you could change your past? So a big piece of level 2 is beginning to recognize really a simple concept. The past is made up of two things. It's made up of an event, and yes, it happened. I fell down and I broke my arm. That's not going to change. My mother didn't like me all through my life. Not going to change. That's the past. In the past. But what if you brought that past into the present and you looked at the second component, which is an emotion? What generally happens is when I talk about my past, I feel the moment I'm talking about. But what if you could separate it by simply recognizing the past as an event? And if I don't bring the emotion into the event, if I don't feel the event, and I basically am sitting here in present time, is that event important for me to carry around in my mental, emotional, physical body? And far more often than not, the answer is I don't need to keep holding my attention on this. And the mechanics of energy in the body and in the cells is once you start basically recognizing in present time, I don't need that anymore, even though you didn't need it all those life years in this life, you didn't recognize you could change it. So the whole purpose of level 2 is how do I clean out that backpack, that accumulation of I'm not okay, I don't deserve. How do I get rid of it? And it's actually pretty simple, but you have to change your frame of reference and look at it from a little different way than you looked at it in the past. So is it possible to clear it out of the cells? Absolutely. You're muted. A deer in headlights. I still can't hear you. Everybody, you got to be laughing at this. This is really, I don't know what to do. All right, keep playing. Interrupt me when you figure it out. Let me just talk about another question that I know was there, and that was this backpack. Somebody asked the question, well, what is this backpack thing you keep talking about? So kind of as you move through your life, every moment of the day, you step into a new circumstance. And some of those circumstances are with people who are not very present, not very aware, not very kind. They're pushy, they're bullies, you have created a relationship with people in such a way that you choose to not engage or push against them. So they basically have learned how to push against you. Growing up, parents don't intend to be mean, but they often are. And they're not even recognizing they're mean. They're simply saying, what's wrong with you? You know, you're stupid. You can't do this right. Well, in that 1 second, we make a decision, I'm not okay. And in that 1 second, I create a new pathway for the rest of my life. So, but what if that statement was not true? You're not okay was not true. What if you're not okay was simply somebody else's bad moment in their own life, which it was. Most of the stuff you walk around with, holding yourself hostage for not being okay, does not belong to you. You never came into this life, well, let me not go quite never. You come into this lifetime looking for excitement and joy and creation and fun. You didn't come in with the backpack saying, I'm not okay and I don't deserve. Now, there's a little more to that conversation, but basically, it's not your idea that you're not okay. But I don't like it and I don't know what to do with it. So how do I deal with it? And I can't deal with it. I don't have an answer. So I'm just going to put it back here behind me and kind of make a deal with it. If you don't come out and bite me in the butt, I won't go anywhere near those people who didn't like me in the first place. So what you do is you navigate your life around a whole lot of thoughts and emotions and beliefs that really have nothing to do with you. So when you start to shift your point of reference and you realize, let's go back to the law of attraction, what you put your attention on, I, the universe who absolutely adore you and will not second guess you, the universe says, because you're the creator being, I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. So how much of that backpack is what you're asking for? I don't think I'm any good. I don't think I'm smart. I don't think. Think is the operative word. And I don't feel good about myself. No, backpack. So what if you could basically recognize that most of that doesn't belong to you? You have a set of tools, not therapy, a set of tools that realize that issue of I'm not okay that my mother said when I was 9 years old, that I've been holding myself hostage for, I don't have to keep carrying that around. What if you had a tool, a concept, an awareness, an ability to just simply recognize it's nothing more than dust on the shelf, except I've given it a lot of power. Would you like to change that around? Clearing out the backpack. So let me see, Roxanne, if you've been successful. No.
Coming into the office. And I'm going to read in the dark.
There's another one of these funny things about technology.
It works when you're practicing.
Well, I'm looking at the screen and it's like really bright in this room. Every window is blacked out.
And there's a hammer on his desk.
Well, that doesn't count. That was to make the lines go up for technology. So please be amused with us. We're simply going to play at this. This is also one of those things where right now we could be traumatized. Like, oh no, there's 487 people on this call and we're not doing it right. Put yourself in our situation right now. How would you be dealing with this? And so here's a choice. I could be traumatized. I'm not going to change the technology. It's still going to be staring at me differently. And but can I make this something amusing? And so we did. We'll just rearrange how we're doing this. So
okay, so this one.
You're going to have to talk. Okay. Kind of got this microphone.
Okay. So this one is from Danny, who's a newcomer. Some teachers suggest that by not loving yourself enough or meditating enough or praying enough or doing XYZ enough, we don't attract the good stuff. Like if you did it a certain way, you wouldn't be in the position you're in. That feels like self-blame. Your thoughts?
So this whole thing about somebody else shooting on you, if you get enough people shooting on you, wind up a lot of shit all over you. And a lot of that is simply somebody else's opinion. And so in this context where you start to play with energy, one of the things that happens, it's all about you. Everything is about you. How do you choose this next minute? And so one of the things that we do is we listen to other people. The whole 3D game is about, do they like me? Am I successful? Are they going to approve of me? Other people's opinions about your well-being. So when it comes time to, well, in order to have a spiritual life, you have to pray, you have to meditate, you have to do all these things. How has that worked out? I watched people for 40 years playing in meditation, and more often than not, they're in a process of trying to answer challenges about their day. They're trying to get quiet. But what happens is if you recognize you can just shift your position, change your point of observation, and begin to be just simply with one breath quiet. And then quieter, eyes open, you don't even have to close your eyes, and then recognize I'm right here. What starts to happen is I'm in present time. What do I want? How do I wish to choose? So the whole purpose of really the level 1, level 2 work is How do I shift my position and recognize that I have the power, that I have seniority, I'm capable, I'm certain I can make decisions for myself without needing that to be approved of or explained by somebody else. So in this case of spirituality, what we're playing here, Mastering Upgrade, it's not magic. It's just simply shift your position slightly, consider these concepts, these tools, these strategies, and like yourself. Like yourself. Something that you just asked me, when was the last time you liked yourself? I mean, literally stopped and chose to like yourself. So, yeah, I can do that. Absolutely.
No, that's okay.
Doesn't matter. The camera's right here.
Oh.
So, to answer the question is, what is it that I want and how do I get there? And I'm going to suggest pretty strongly after watching thousands of people play in this space is there's choices that you can make that get you the answer that you would like.
Jim, this one is from Forrest. Forrest is asking, in terms of the quote backpack you talk about, how can I clean?
Right, that's one I just answered.
Oh, I wasn't. No, you answered Danny about the. Okay. Okay, let's see. We have
I'm using
Carrie. I wonder what has attracted certain genetic things into my life. Things I came into the body with, like a physical disability or disease.
So there's three things that affect your reality. You come in with a genetic lineage. So that's that physical mother, father, all the way back genetically. You come into an environment that you get to play in. So you've got the world and the climate change, and you've got different toxicities, all those kind of things going on. You also have an environment that you choose to play your life out in. What school you choose to go to, education, all kinds of things like that. And that third piece is really, how do you want to play the game? That's the one that gets pushed to the back because everybody else knows more than I know. And so when you start to recognize those three configurations, the genetics is something that's genetics. Now, is that changeable? The answer is yes, but is it changeable right where we're playing right here? Not significantly so. Can you change the genetics? Yes. Can you basically change your attention point, how you view the world, the filters that you draw the world through? I'm not okay, the world's bad, people are bad, there's wars, how dare they? From those filters, there's usually a whole set of emotions and feelings that build up in the body that then you begin to shape your life by those. Once you can figure out how to simply, you have the capacity to change your point of reference. You have permission. That sounds like something maybe insignificant right here. It's enormous. Permission belongs to you. It's not something somebody gives you. But in that context, how much seniority do you give away to everybody else when you want to create something for yourself? So as you begin to change that point of observation, you start to change things, including the chemistries of the body is changeable. Is that a piece of work? Yes. Is it simple? No. Is it very doable? It is very doable, but some assembly required.
Jim, this one is from Anita. The law of attraction.
You have to kind of talk towards this microphone,
Okay.
I'm afraid. Come sit over here.
Here. Jim, this one is from Anita. Let's see. The law of attraction has a bad rap because often it does not, quote, work how we want it to work. What are the most common stumbling blocks that stop the flow?
Is your attention point. So what stops the law of attraction from working? So let's basically first recognize the law of attraction. Let me say it again as I did before. The universe says, I, the universe that adore you, will not second guess you, will simply give you what you put your attention on. Now the challenge with the law with the universe in that context is it understands vibration. It doesn't understand English, French, and Spanish. How do you feel? How are you excited? How are you holding your attention on what you wish to create? Are you in fear? Are you resisting? The universe doesn't distinguish between fear and excitement. And so, in this context, what I put my attention on, I'm scared, I'm worried, I don't think it's going to work, I'm sure I'm not okay to make this happen. The universe simply says the next morning when you wake up, here's what I'm providing you for the day based on how you're vibrating. So, again, this whole process of would you like to create a different point of observation, a different kind of configuration of choices that allow you to be able to create on your own terms. And so as soon as you change that focus, that law of attraction begins to work. In level 2, there's a set of tools called the fourth, fifth, sixth ray. And one of those concepts is in the fourth ray. You're playing in third dimension, you're playing in the past, you're living, the past can't be changed. What you say is, that person is terrible, they're always going to be terrible. They're never going to change. Well, that's pretty rigid, always and never. And so the fourth ray says, fine, I'll assemble that for you. And it does. And you create that electromagnetic, emotional belief, I am really angry at them, they're never going to change. And then you carry it for the rest of your life. But what you aren't told is the fourth ray not only assembles what you're asking for, it reassembles or removes what you created. I don't need that anymore, you say to it. Fourth ray begins to loosen it up, brings it up to the fifth ray, allows you a neutrality. Is there anything of value here? And if the answer is no, being really simple, you give it to the sixth ray. You check the book back into the library. I don't need rage anymore. I don't need embarrassment anymore. You're going to be absolutely blown away if you play the game like that and recognize I'm changing my point of observation. All that goes away. Now, let me take it one more step. What gets really interesting, going back to the cell question, is as you get rid of what you've accumulated in the past, how you've assembled it, how you're arguing for your limitations, because that's what that is all about. As you basically say to that fourth ray, I don't need this anymore, let's decouple it. And you give it back to the library, in manner of speaking. It's taken out of the cells. It's taken out of the mental, emotional body. And the interesting part is you don't remember that you ever were in that position as you move forward in the game. Within weeks, if I said to you, hey, remember when we talked about that resentment you had about life? Many times people look at me and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, do you remember? Not really, is the answer. It's not only is the emotion gone, but the memory that is tied to is gone if it's not your memory. And an awful lot of what I said earlier, much of what you believe isn't even yours. So when all that simply goes away, you get back on your path and what is part of your purpose and memory structure. Hope that helps.
Jim, here's a question from Adina, who's in level 2. And Adina is curious about the agreements with soul extensions. Can we recognize those agreements? Can we change them? And how? So you might want to explain a little bit about soul extensions.
So this is a bigger topic than 2 minutes or 10 minutes to my answers. So the soul, for just general purposes, the soul where we're playing creates 12 extensions of itself, and kind of like children, sends them out into the universes. Not all on this planet, not all in this dimensional zone. And it basically says the same thing the Creator says. I wish to know myself in my fullness. And so does the soul. So it creates different constructs of itself. All those constructs go out and have different experiences. And so one of the things that it's hard for some people to hear is if you bump into your soul extension, which is really unlikely, but if you do, you probably would be not so happy because you're in the way of one another. You begin to remember and you're in the way. Let me just leave it there. But I want to know about myself, you say, as you begin to kind of evolve into this present time state of awareness and you begin to put yourself back together. You begin to know about the eighth chakra. You begin to know about the neuron messaging system. You begin to change the structure of yourself around. Knowing about the soul extensions is not so much about was I the king or the janitor or the queen or the prostitute. What you were really is going to become clear. It's insignificant. But what is valuable to you is being able to ask a question in simultaneous time, different than present time. Has anybody ever had this experience? Whatever it is you're creating and working on. Now, you're not talking about I'm stuck, I'm in 3D, I'm having a terrible life. You don't even approach simultaneous time. But when you start to ask the question, when I'm feeling on my journey, I'm recognizing that I'm capable, I'm present, I'm turning on the eighth chakra, I'm beginning to explore something way down the line called the Ark of the Covenant. What is that? It's not a box they drug around in the sand. It's an aspect of your engagement with Source and the soul. And so there I begin to ask questions. How do I create? Has anybody created like this? Manner of speaking. And so the words, not words, you begin to know. You simply know the answer. And from that space, you begin to do something different. Now, one of the things as you kind of move through this process of being a spiritual being, awakening, and you start putting yourself back together, you rewire yourself, realign, recreate, remember yourself, because you know all of this. We're not teaching you a thing virtually, maybe here and there, but virtually you know all this. So you're remembering. It's in that process that you start to put a lot of your abilities together to simply know. And the knowing doesn't come in words when you're playing in this upper fifth, sixth multidimensional space. It's like simply you're quiet and all of a sudden it's like, okay, but okay, what? I don't know. I'm just okay. I've got the answer. And as you start to move around, that answer begins to play out. So it's the soul extensions is a place where once you're recognizing I'm on this journey to remembering myself, soul extension connection begins to be of value. The end.
Jim, this one is from Sherry, who's in level 1. And everybody, everyone, when you go to ask your question, if you would let us know if you're a new listener or if you're in level 1, 2, or 3 or grad, that would be helpful. So Jim can kind of answer your question to what tools you have on your tool bench. This one here is from Sherry in level 1. I use my mastering alchemy tools rather regularly: grounding, bubble, rose, center of the head, colors, etc. But I still get pulled into some reactive situations instead of a choice of response. What am I missing?
So you're missing practice, really is the answer. So you recognize tools in level 1. You're starting to play with those. They're called foundational tools because they're exactly that. But does a person recognize the importance of them as they start to learn them? No, not really. It's like, I get it. Wow, this is fun. This is works. What's the next thing is generally what happens. But when you begin to be more intentional about those fundamental tools, being in the center of your head, being grounded, being able to be quiet, be on my side of the road, so all the tools in level 1, or some of the tools in level 1. What happens is you get to practice them. So with regard to the rows, one of the things we suggest is go walk in the mall, go to the grocery store, put your rows up in front of you and talk to the person checking out your groceries. They're not interested in you. They're being polite. But if you can practice, I've got my rows right here and they're over there and I'm on my side. what begins to happen is you find yourself playing there consciously and kind of unconsciously. It just happens. You're remembering an aspect of yourself. It's like I just recognized I have a hand when you begin to play with the rose. It's part of you. Grounding is part of you. But what happens is you start to recognize I don't like this thing that's going on in front of me. And when I'm staying on my side of the rose, it's not requiring anything of me. I just don't like it. It's not nice what they're saying. You're not even in the conversation. Practice your rose. Because all of a sudden you realize I'm observing something I don't like, but I'm not the effect of that. It's at that point you're able to kind of step in many situations and reshift the conversation, change it to another direction. So you have choice on your side of the rose. As soon as you give your attention to what's on the other side, it passes right through your space. The rose is useless in a manner of speaking because you're giving more attention to what I don't want than what I do want.
Jim, this one is from Andrew, also in level 1. I really enjoy the octahedron. It feels so real. What happens to our octahedron when we're with our family members? My husband came over to hug me, and I suddenly felt, did he cross into my octahedron?
So the rose, same thing, the rose. And so basically this octahedron is fun. It's part of the rose construct when you put it together. It's a geometry, a four-sided pyramid above you, four-sided pyramid below you. It's who you are. It's part of you, just forgotten, not used, turned off for the most part. But when you begin to turn it on, that octahedron acts like an antenna in simple terms. You begin to have a more clarity. You begin to have a little bit more present awareness of what's going on around me. The rose is part of that in a manner of speaking. But all of a sudden, I'm more aware. But you heighten that awareness and you go back to the rose. On my side of the rose is me and what I'm cleaning out of me. And on the other side of the rose is Shakespeare's theater to entertain me. And I say that nicely because I could say the other side of the rose is to have you watch the world falling apart. Well, that doesn't really work very well. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in my well-being and how I'm able to apply my well-being to others and their well-being. But on your side of the rose, you begin to recognize I have different choices in how I engage with what's in front of me. The octahedron just helps expand that. But it's really the rose. In this work, you're going to find you can go all the way into the light body and beyond. There's a lot of information in Mastering Alchemy. It's not a certificate on the wall, it's a journey. And as you go through that journey, you begin to find a whole lot of aspects of how to navigate yourself differently. But of all the tools that you're going to play with, even at that place where many graduates have been here for a number of years playing at this, and they say, what are the two most important tools I have available to myself? The rose and the words. Both explained and learned and mastered in level 1 and 2. It's at that really fundamental level of how do I manage myself and how do I choose differently without getting caught up in the emotions. That's what you begin to get with those two tools.
And this one is from Helen. I took your law of attraction class. If I use the law of attraction to bring me well-being, joy, happiness, etc., can I also use it if I change my point of reference to view others that I meet and reflect those qualities to them for their greater being? In other words, can I use the law of attraction for others?
So can I use the law of attraction for others? So I'm going to first say no, then I'm going to say yes. So the no part of the answer is it's your relationship with the creator or the universe, if you wish. It's a basic aspect of actually something even deeper. In the heart, you have an internal guidance system. You all know that place. That one where everybody says, we're going to go do this. And you're going, I don't think so. And if you really pay attention to it, every time you came out on your feet, that internal guidance system basically drives everything. So,
What?
the question.
The question was, can I use the law of attraction for other people?
Just space that. So, the law of attraction is basically how do I navigate? How do I create what I want? And how do I move through that whole space? So, it's a completely open, creative space. It's not somebody else's. They have their own law of attraction. But what you do get to do is basically managing your own space and liking yourself as you begin to play in all this, get rid of the baggage, and you start to realize, I like me, something that's been buried under the I'm not okay. But as the I like me begins to become more predominant, I begin to be happier. I'm more comfortable with myself. I'm at ease. I'm even smiling more, and I'm noticing things that I've never noticed before. In that process, you begin to hold vibration of light. Is that intellectual in any way? Probably not. Can I figure it out? How will I know when I'm holding a lot of light? Probably not, except you're going to feel it. It's in the feeling. And so all of a sudden you start to find that people smile at you more, or they say hello where they've never said hello before, or people around you start to say, I don't know what's going on, but you seem happier. It's nice being around you. Well, the nice being around you is I feel good when I'm around you. And so from that standpoint, it's the law of attraction, helping other people. Yes. Can you help other people by fixing them? Or no, not really. If they don't choose to be receptive to the information, you're not going to fix anybody.
Jim, here's a question from Sabine on Facebook. Sabine is here with us on Facebook. I have the concern when I speak through the rose, can I really connect with the other person and listen deeply and be fully present for the other person?
Yeah, great question. So part of this question is not just to Sabine, but everybody else. I'm a feeler. Anybody a feeler? Anybody feel other people? In fact, you use that, it's called clairsentient, little thing in the second chakra. It sends out a signal and it says, what is that feeling that person has? Mad, glad, happy, sad. And then the answer comes back and the second chakra says, mad, glad, angry, happy, whatever the answer is. One of the things that we've learned how to do, because we've been beaten up in so many ways, and if you're a really good feeler, you begin to change the question on the little radar machine, sonar machine. The question is, what is that feeling? But if you're beaten up or you're uncomfortable, you're uncertain about yourself, the question changes to, what is that feeling about me? And now that person that's unhappy over there is unhappy with me. That person angry, they're angry with me. So it's something that we begin to navigate as a kid. But as we grow up, we also come to a place of finding people I like me from that little sonar machine. But I have this sense that I need them to be in my space. What happens when they get mad at you? Well, they're in my space. So what if you didn't need them in your space? Now, somebody else asked this question earlier, similar. If you're having sex, throw the rose away, get it all over you. You're rolling around, you're having a grand time. But almost other than that, there's not a lot of value to having people in your space. Then it begins to be even a bigger question. But I know they love me. Yeah, I feel their love. And I want them loving me. Well, somebody in your space and loving you often are two very different things. And so, what if I was able to recognize I love me? In fact, that's what we do in getting in people's space. I love me when I'm with you. It's not so much I love you, that's what we say. Oh, I love you. I feel good. But usually the people, when you're in love, that feeling, and there's a lot more to love, I'm with somebody who's vibrating like me. I like you because you're like me. And I feel me in that space, not necessarily them. So when you start to play with feelings in my space, you begin to figure out, how do I manage me for well-being, and how do I say hello to that other person from a space of well-being. In my space is energy in my space. And what happens when that person starts to become angry, becomes uncomfortable with what they're doing? They're uncomfortable in your space. We don't think about it that way, but if you start to become more conscious, kind of playing where we're playing a lot of these tools, you start to realize that feeling I'm having of unease or off balance, or my mood just shifted, or I don't have a sense of certainty where I was comfortable a minute ago. What is all that? How do you lose your space instantly so often? And to a great extent, it's not yours. You aren't changing. It's the mood and the shift of everybody that passed through your space. You learn to adapt to that people in my space, because I don't have a rose. I don't have a point of delineation that says this is me and that's Shakespeare's theater to entertain me. Once that rose starts to be understood and established, you start to realize that an awful lot of the energy that's running through your space doesn't belong to you. Then you start moving it out. And then it gets really interesting, because I don't know what to do in a way, because I'm not irritated or I'm not anxious. So I don't have that energy, of which was never mine in the first place.
Another piece to that, Sabine, is when you have your rose up between yourself and the other person is getting all emotional or is having some issues, because you're on your side of the rose, you're able to actually listen better and help them and ask the right questions. You're not sucked into their pain. You're not feeling their pain. So you could have a perspective that they might not have, and therefore be more useful.
In addition, you ever notice in an argument or a back and forth that it amplifies? Well, no, I didn't say that. Well, yes, you did say that. That whole back and forth that goes on, when you're on your side of the rose, you all of a sudden realize, I don't need to continue this conversation. It doesn't have any value except amplifies them, and then they get more irritated at me. And pretty soon it's an uncomfortable space. Managing the space from the standpoint of, you get to the place where you say, I hear what you're saying. Is it possible this could be going on too? That simple change in dialogue dramatically changes arguments. It's okay, I hear you. And it's not like, no, that didn't happen. This is what I did. There's no management, as everybody knows.
Jim, this one is from Bonnie. I'm being led to community as opposed to politics. How best to keep on helping others without getting the flack from the people who are service to themselves?
Wait a second. You just pushed something.
What?
So Vita, oh wait, you just did something here. Hold on. No, you hit a button. Let's do that again. Technology.
Okay.
Thank you for bearing with us.
So this question is from Bonnie. I'm being led to community as opposed to politics. How best to keep on helping others without getting the flack from the people who are only in service to themselves?
So this is a great place to be, and it's where the whole world is going. So one of the things that's happening in the world is becoming conscious. And as they begin to become conscious, they're recognizing a lot of the stuff in their backpacks. And they're also uncertain about how to step into another state of being. Many of you are beginning to become conscious and recognizing there are other choices or I want other choices. And community begins to be what I want. I want to be around like-minded people that I can enjoy and I can engage with. And so the politics, so let me say it differently. We've been saying for now about 4 years that these waves of light are coming in. And these waves of light are both destructive and opportunistic. They are basically pushing everything in your backpack to the surface. Those of you that can recognize this is not what I want and I'm not going to engage with this are starting to move towards that internal guidance system. There's more, there's something different, and I'm having a passion about something different as opposed to fear. On the other side, and that 3D side, everything's coming to the surface also, but people are going into a level of fear. And the fear is I'm going to lose my status quo. I'm losing my circumstances. I don't know what to do. I'm worried. I'm giving a lot of attention to war, politics, climate change. And I'm going into fear because I don't know what to do. So I'm running all of that through my body. I don't have tools and I don't know what to do, but I'm worried. I'm upset. And so that space of being upset is everything coming out of the backpack. Beginning to turn to community, that's one of the reasons why we're aggressively building this community right now in order to give people an opportunity to say this question, I don't know what to do. I'm choosing this, but I don't know what to do. And we think there's going to be answers available in that space. But this is why the tools are so important. You have an opportunity kind of to step off the train tracks. I don't know when the train's coming, but I know it's going to come. And then you stay there and worry about when the train's coming. What if you just stepped off the train tracks? No, it's too easy. No, it's not too easy and it's not too simple. Would you like to have a different point of reference to view the world without getting the world all over you or without running the world through your internal emotional systems? And so please play in community. And there's a whole lot of opportunity here that's unfolding.
This one is from Sharon. I'd like more clarity on the difference between vibrations, 3D, 4D, and frequencies, 5D.
So we've been saying the question around let me start with what's the difference between an emotion and a feeling? That's the question that gets asked often, nobody ever answers. So let's define emotions as edges. Now, this is not a truth. This is not an absolute. It's a reference, and it works pretty well. Anger, rage, resentment, jealousy is an edge. Happy, gracious, laughter, appreciation, gratitude, no edge. So if you can begin to just start to notice, am I in a feeling or am I in emotion? You now have a piece of information to begin to change your point of observation. But with regard to the third, fourth, fifth dimensions, that's pretty much what the question is about. Third dimension is a very erratic, changing place, just like the weather. It's not dependable for any significant length of time. People in 3D are not dependable for any significant length of time. I'm not beating anybody up, just kind of watching the world. And right now it's very agitated, about to get a lot more agitated. And so in that 3D space, I rely on my point of observation and what I have gathered to this point of my life, to this minute, everything that's accumulated. And to a great extent, it's an uncertainty. I'm not sure. Now, are you all okay? Yeah, you're okay. Are you able to navigate your life comfortably for yourself? Yeah, perfectly so? No. But when you start to get to the point of what is going on, you start to have this opportunity to begin to make a shift. And so the third dimension has a lot of rules and structures to it. Linear time, conditionality, duality, right, wrong, good, bad. All of that is what makes up 3D. Power over them versus us. That's 3D. That's the constructs of 3D. When you go into this, there is no physicalness in 4D. Physicalness, the tree, the house, the chair you're sitting on, 3D and 5D. But with the difference, 4D is a thought realm. And 4D is a place to partly answer the question that will come later about where are the elementals in all of this. Very much in 4D. Helping. So 4D is where all the thoughts ever thought on this planet are stored. You ever ask yourself, where does the thought go that I just thought a minute ago? It doesn't go poof and go away. Thoughts have density to them. Thoughts are made of matter. You would get around somebody, two people who are arguing, and you step into that room, it's like, ooh, excuse me, you back right out because it's dense, it's heavy, it's thick. That's thought in material, matter. There's nothing physical, though, it's all thought. The thing about the earth, which is the question in a few minutes, is all the thoughts ever thought accumulate in the emotional body of the earth. Just like you have an emotional body, that baggage, that backpack, the great, wonderful experiences, the bad experiences, emotional body. The earth's emotional body holds all the thoughts ever thought. That's a lot of war, it's a lot of damage, it's a lot of survival and struggle. And the earth is evolving into its next stage, and it's shedding that emotional body. Just like you are now in the process of, you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. And so as you begin to clear out the baggage, the backpack, the tools, you start to realize, I'm okay. Well, the earth is beginning to realize that she's okay. You don't see that yet, but she does. And she's going to make sure she gets rid of that emotional body, all those thoughts, them versus us. In the fifth dimension, worry, anger, rage, those emotions, they don't exist. You can't take your backpack with you to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is simply, we could say, is about well-being. It's simply living in respect and kindness and laughter, and there's no looking over your shoulder, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It does not exist in the fifth dimension where you're about to play. Now, can I go play in the fifth dimension even though I've got a backpack? Well, the answer is yes. But the moment you give attention to the backpack, you simply fall back out of the fifth dimension. You never get kicked out. You just fall back. Your attention goes to, oh, this makes me really angry. Back in 3D. As you begin to learn to manage my emotions and thoughts, one other piece, we refer to a mental body and we refer to an emotional body. They never were meant to be two bodies. And when you start to look from a different point of observation, the ability to see something ugly, angry, and then simply recognize, I don't have to push against it. I don't have to put my finger in that light socket. I don't have to argue with it. I can't fix what I'm looking at. War in Ukraine. As an individual, can you fix it? No. Does it serve you to have all of that energy running through your body? No. It just makes me uncomfortable. We're talking about each one of us. Is it right? No, it's not right. Is it a horrible thing? Absolutely. But do I have to run the horribleness through my body? No. Can I be disappointed? Yes. Can I be concerned? Yes. Can I wish to solve something, help somebody? Yes. Do I have to run the pain through my body? No. And so go back, there's your tools again. So in this fifth dimensional state, really just kind of define it in a very simple way. It's more complex, but well-being. Well-being. If I can be happy and smile and comfortable and enjoy my circumstance in the moment, fifth dimension. The same tree, the same chair, the same house. But one of the things happens is many of the people that you play with in 3D that are still arguing for their backpack, they seem to begin to fall away from your reality. The only challenge is in 3D, their circumstance, they don't even see you. They don't see your happy, your joy, your excitement, your new creation. They can't see that. They're in pain. They're choosing pain. Now, that would be hard to hear, but they're choosing pain. So they don't have any alternate observation point. But in your case, you start to feel well-being. You still see them. And that begins to be just part of the growing remembering space. How do I not get empathetically and sympathetically engaged, running it through my space? And how do I show compassion and uplifting and assisting? Empathy and sympathy, I have to feel it to know it. Compassion, I can see it and change the direction.
Jim, here's a sweet comment from Noelle, who's on YouTube right now. I couldn't be going through this shift as smoothly and peacefully most of the time without my time spent with mastering alchemy. Words are not enough to explain the help I received.
Great. We're happy for you.
And here is a question from Jethro. How did the tools of level 1 set up level 2?
Great question. So level 1 is all about a series of recognitions. And what the basic recognition is, I hear this often, is I knew there was more. I knew there was something else. I've always known, I didn't belong on this planet, but all of a sudden this makes sense to me. So the tools, as simple as we can be, grounding. Everybody knows about grounding, but do you really? Oh, yeah. We'll see. So grounding, center of my head. Can I observe the world without jumping over there to the world? It's a skill. Most people don't pay a lot of attention to it because they're too busy moving in past and future. The rose becomes important. The octahedron begins to be very important. And when you start to assemble yourself into an alignment, grounded, present, aware on my side of the rose, I begin to go into my heart. And it's in that heart space where you start to begin to recognize, I like me. I can give to myself. Not hard. And as you start to step into, kind of follow some of the direction, you begin to experience words like reverence, this huge sense of reverence in the universe. It's very quieting. It's very amazing. You start to find that there's something in the heart that's referred to as the pink diamond. It's an aspect of love. And it's smooth and it's quiet and it's powerful and it's a feeling that you begin to realize I have access to as application. Applying love as an application to creating what I want. When that concept starts to be understood, then you step into level 2, and kind of one of the things that happens in level 2 is you increase that antenna. That octahedron fits right into the star tetrahedron. Star tetrahedron, big deal, but simply it's another antenna, much more expansive, does lots of things, but we'll just leave it as an antenna for the moment. You begin to know yourself a little bit more. There's something called there's a realignment. People say the unified field of the creator. Well, that exists. And that's something you can't think. It's something that you rearrange the functionality of the chakra system to something different. The chakras don't move. You just use them differently. You open up the 8th chakra, you begin to access something called the soul star, where you and the soul, the higher self, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul, all connect. There's these rays of creation, that huge energetic configurations that every particle of existence is created from. You use them all day long to create what you create. You may be sloppy at it and not recognize it, and you get a lot of things you don't want. But what if I understood the mechanics of creation. Fourth, fifth, sixth ray. Eighth ray, the ability to kind of unravel a lot of what I put together. Go a little further. Would you like to change the chakras? People think chakras are these discs that face forward. You've taught that all your life. For many people, that's kind of the teaching. But when you start to play here, they're not discs. They're simply shut down. It's amazing they work as well as they do. But basically, when you start to engage with the archangelics, the lords of light, the ascended masters, they all come jumping into this game, and you get to hear the conversations that have been had with them and the instructions on how to change certain things. Those chakras, those lower four chakras, they're not discs. They're brilliant, dynamic spheres of light. And when you reconstruct them, things change. There's something called the Eye of Horus. It's not a necklace. It may be a mystery school, but basically it's a combination of the sixth chakra, the pineal center, the seventh chakra, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and a couple medulla oblongata, a couple portions of the brain. All of those deal with your psychic abilities, your spiritual abilities. You have all those abilities. But when that Eye of Horus gets turned back on, and it takes a while to set it in, you begin to use all of those abilities from the place of knowing. You just start to know. And so we're not looking for the lottery. That's not what these abilities are all about. Can you see into the future? Yes, but hear that real softly. Can I begin to see what's possible and what's maybe the challenges, that what's right in front of me? Yes. Can I navigate differently? Yes. Can I choose from a different body of information than I have walking around in 3D? Yes. That's what kind of level 2 does, and level 1 reading into it.
Jim, this one is from James in Israel. How do the elementals play into this shift?
Yeah, that's started to touch on that. So the elementals, very real. Do you see them in the third dimension? No, not really. When you start playing at the level of giving yourself permission to even entertain elementals, you get happy. You kind of get amused. You aren't in, these stupid things called elementals. You're in a place where you're stepping out of 3D and beginning to create a point of observation, a point of reception, a point of engagement. We'll just call that 5D for the sake of this discussion. The elementals are very engaged right now with dissolving that emotional body of the earth that I mentioned a moment ago. It's a configuration, all those thoughts that are very restrictive, very third dimension. The earth is stepping into another phase of consciousness. Are you going to notice it? No. It's just going to play differently. Over the next 100 years, all kinds of things will happen that are impossible in your reality right now. But there's a lot of impossible things that are beginning to be reality. So the elementals are something that we touch on kind of in the level 3 part of work. You begin to engage with them. You begin to have the ability to get into a sense of communication. It's not necessarily words. It's very much a knowingness. So fun. You get to see beauty from the point of view of the elementals. We also touch on that in the beginning of year 2, level 2.
And we do a lot of work with that in the park bench project.
Yeah, park bench.
Jim, this next question is from Edward, who's in level 1. When we make separations using the rows from other people, do they notice, and will they know I did it?
Great question. So when you start making separations from other people, will they know it? They might. And what they'll say is, oh, something's different. Just something's different. Is it instantaneously? Generally not. You're just starting to give them back what's theirs and take back what's yours, in a manner of speaking. I think that's written somewhere in the middle of something. In that process of basically staying on your side of the rose, you also are doing something specific. You are losing interest in the games that you've been playing, circumstances you've been living. It's you begin to find that's not so much fun anymore. Maybe it wasn't fun in the first place, but I needed somebody to hang out with, so I hung out with this person. And what you start to find as you begin to know yourself, that a lot of many of the things that you used to do just not interesting anymore. And so you begin to pull your energy out of where you had been placing it. And so from that standpoint, as you play on your side of the rose, people begin to fall away. People have fallen away from your life all your life. You meet people, you're really fun, and then you go, hey, where did that guy go? I haven't seen him for months. So that will continue to happen, even in a little bit of an accelerated level. You can't continue to validate the backpack. And then when you start removing, I'm not okay, power over, I give up seniority to, um, I play in a game where I'm the victim. Would you like to change the victim energy? Level 2. Consciously pay attention to this game called Victim, Rescuer, Persecutor. We all play, well, not all of us, but most everybody plays. Oh, they didn't like me. I'm going to go home and kick the dog because I'm upset. And then I'm going to go fix Sally because she's a mess and she needs my help. Did she ask you? No. And then Sally yells at you and you're the victim all over again. Would you like to get out of that pattern? You have it maybe a little, you have it maybe a lot. But once you recognize it, the game changes. And so as you begin to become conscious of being conscious, you're also becoming conscious of being unconscious, the backpack. And so you start cleaning out the backpack and everything relating to I'm not okay, it begins to fall away. And so people will notice, but for the most part, managing yourself allows them to make some adjustments to manage themselves without them even necessarily knowing it.
Jim, this one is from Sydney, who's in level 2. When you speak of the elementals, I think of dragons and other beings. Is this what you're referring to?
So no, I'm speaking of the elementals as in air and water and earth and fire and ethers. Now, if you try to figure it out with your rational mind, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you can think about, let me see if I can set this up. So you have a television on channel 4, you have a program. Channel 4 has no idea what's going on in channel 5. None. So you have to make an adjustment. You click the clicker, you change the button, and there's a whole nother universe going on in that space. So with the elementals kind of cross over. They're very much in the physical fifth dimensional space because they don't deal with anger, rage, resentment. They see it, they don't play in it. They have to adjust it, so they have to create mechanisms to clear your anger, rage out. That's that fourth dimensional thought form where they're playing very aggressively in terms of neutralizing anger. What would happen if you woke up one day and you just weren't angry anymore? Most of that is even unconscious. It's just like, wow, I feel better. Don't know why. So, but the dragons and the unicorns and the leprechauns, they all exist on Channel 5. But does that make any sense to your rational mind? No. Does it make any sense to your heart? Yeah. Heart says, yeah, I like to play with the dragons. Different phase of energy where thought experiences itself in different constructs. So I'm not trying to sell that, just simply this is what happens. Can you begin to have engagement with that area? Yes. Are you going to ride a dragon? Maybe in your sleep, but not in the third dimension physical space.
Okay, Jim, this one is from Della in level 1. The argument we commonly hear is that watching somebody get beat up is just as bad as beating them up yourself. So the idea of withdrawing our energy causes resistance to me. People can't just stand by and watch things they think are bad happen.
Well, that's logical. I'm a kind, compassionate person. I don't want to see bad things happen. I want to make sure things stop. And now we're talking from a point of reference, and that's really very valid from the point of reference. But how does it feel trying to fix people who are angry and resentful and playing games? So, what if there was another way? So, yes, I don't like pain. I don't like watching people homeless. I don't like watching people suffering. Yeah, most everybody doesn't like that. But what happens is I'm running all that through my body as I'm watching somebody else's circumstance. Does it serve you and does it serve them? Generally, the answer is no. So, but what if I could shift my attention point in such a way to where I could be aware of them and be aware of their pain, be aware of their suffering, but not run it through my body? Now I'm in a more of a neutral place and I can choose differently. When you start to begin to recognize your ability to increase the vibration of light in your body, so let's call light happy or joy or funny or entertaining, or you can change the conversation to a place where you can adjust it into a state of well being and uplifting. That's a skill. And so when I can change the subject from holding attention on pain to saying to somebody, "Oh, I see your pain, but that's really a lovely dress you have. Where did you get that?" Instantly, they stop putting their attention on pain and they move to, "Oh, you like my dress? I like it too." They're not in pain in that instant. They literally go out of pain. Attention, emotional. The body change? No, body's pain is in pain. But what happens? I stop giving attention to my pain. So, what would happen if you basically expanded your skill set to alter a circumstance and bring it into another state of consciousness, a state of well being, a state of happier? Did their pain, hurt arm go away? No. But are you able to give them a little bit room to consider that they can hold their attention differently and the pain isn't quite the same and the arm may heal? That's a skill. You actually have that skill, but most have forgotten. So when I shift my attention, I have more choices as to radiate this light and be seen. People come to you and simply start talking to you. I don't even know them. Something about them is attracted to you. So if you can look at what they're saying and realize, wow, that's exciting. Have you ever tried this? They go, no, I never thought about that. And then they go about their business. You have the capacity to alter the circumstances from a place of present time, quiet observation and choice. But you didn't get taught that in school or in church or in mom, dad, teacher, ministry. They didn't tell you that. Would you like to remember yourself? And that's what this is all about.
Jim, here's a question from Lewis on YouTube right now. What is the best way to reprogram your subconscious mind?
So become conscious is the best way. Okay, so, but how do I do that? So if you are a person who's really caught up in the past, in the future, you are spending a lot of time worrying about or hoping it ever happens again, or this is the truth because my mother told me, and you're building yourself based on 3D. If I say and do the right thing, they will like me. See, it's a little bit of a challenge too, because your rational mind has a couple of very specific purposes: to keep you safe and have you fit in. Well, this whole conversation that we're having here is not about keeping you safe or having you fit in. It's not about putting you at risk or danger. It's simply basically if I keep safe and I sit in my room and I don't talk to anybody, I'm never going to get damaged. Well, you're right. Maybe, but for the sake of discussion, you're right. But how many friends do you have and what do you know about the world going on? So, how do I begin to alter how I engage with the world in such a way that I engage with the world in a place of well-being? And so it's not so much about them. I'm very compassionate about them, but it's about me beginning to have choices to navigate how I would like to uplift them and enjoy myself at the same time. And for those who played in Park Bench, we were really clear about one thing: 100% for me, 100% for others, service too. And the example I'd give is walking out of the grocery and the lady behind you's got her arms full and you hold the door open. She says, "Oh, thank you so much." "You're welcome." "Yeah, my pleasure." Happy, happy. In that instant. Can you create that instant over and over?
Jim, let's let this be our last question because it's been almost 90 minutes.
Wow.
This one is from Judith, who is a new listener. Can we experience living fully in 5D in this lifetime and in this body? Living in 5D would become very difficult if outside 3D pressures require our compliance.
Well, outside 3D pressures, let's say in general, don't require compliance. Now, if you have an authoritative government and you've got the military sitting on your doorstep, probably best interest to do certain things that they say. But we're talking about the physical nature in that example. But here, there's living in a 5-dimensional physical body is very doable. Watching many people doing it right now. People who've just gone through the reset program, kind of completed mastering alchemy, engaged in putting that light body together. Light body is not a body, it's an integrated circuit system that puts the physical, the etheric, the mental emotional, the causal body, the oversoul, the higher self, the Christed oversoul, and the soul all into one place. As that all comes about, very easy, very simple, easy, some work required, some assembly required. But as you begin to do that, the ability to start to recognize you have some ways of living in this physical body that are extremely different than you've ever even considered. There's a body called the etheric body. That's most people call it the astral body, the thing I go to sleep in and then I come back into the body. Well, what happened when you went to sleep? Well, I had some dreams. Well, that's what happens when you come back into the body for the most part, or you get up to pee in the middle of the night. But that's not what's going on at all. That's just coming back, passing through a layer. When you go home every night, in that etheric body, start calling it that, you remember everything you know about you. But when you come back into the physical body, there's so much noise and attention into past and future and anger and rage in the backpack, there's no room in the cells to bring what you know back into the physical body. But the etheric body has all of the information. It only has a very little tiny place to connect with you. In fact, it connects at the meridian acupuncture points. That's called the docking points. So when you go to sleep at night, you turn the magnet one way and the etheric body and all the other bodies leave. You come back in, you turn it the opposite way and you lock down. It's the acupuncture points that happens. But what if you could clean out all of the backpack? What if you could begin to play in the heart and I like me, which is much even bigger than that. I begin to enjoy the smile. I find beauty in the most amazing places. I like me. All of a sudden, and you build that light body, but you play in just the basic tools, you start to recognize that when I look at something that's ugly, I don't have to know it by drawing it into my cells. See, that's what you do. I want the physical, you say, as a spiritual being, I want to know what this is. I want to know myself. And so I look at that thing over there and I want to know what it is. So how I know? I draw it into the feeling emotional body to recognize it. Well, feeling emotional body exists in every cell of the body. So now I have anger. Oh, I know what that is. But did you clean it out? No, it's still there. And now I recognize anger again in another way, in another way. And pretty soon all I've been doing is filling my cells up with how I perceive the world. Well, what if you could understand and really apply that rose so that it's not a wall, it simply is Shakespeare's theater over there, and it doesn't pass through my point of delineation. This point, this rose that says everything over there is the world, everything over here is me. And now I'm recognizing there's a whole lot of not me in my space. So there's all your rays and your color codes and your different sets of tools. Now I'm cleaning all the cells out every time I take somebody doesn't like me out of my body. Pretty soon the cells start to get more comfortable. They're not in agitation and irritation at all kinds of levels. As I clean those out, those level 2 tools, start cleaning out the backpack, I start feeling more comfortable. My rose starts to work when I pay attention and start to allow it, and then it becomes routine. I don't even pay attention to it. I'm surprised when I'm not on my side of the rose far more than when I am on my side of the rose. So as that begins to happen, this is one of the changes that the people playing in Reset and numbers of people all over the planet are starting to be able to conceive of and bring into this new realm. So a lot of you all played in Park Bench. There was 5,000 of you that played in Park Bench. And Park Bench was just once a month for a while. Then it got to be a little bit more. It was free. It was creating a new realm of consciousness. You were extraordinarily successful. So what does 5D look like in a physical space? It's in the process of being materialized in a lot of ways. As your thinking begins to be in well-being and you get happy, that field of consciousness, new realm, we'll call it in simple terms, is the place that you are spending a lot of time in your sleep space when you go home. Now, do you get into it when I'm angry and resentful? No. Remember we said that earlier. 5D doesn't allow you to take the backpack. But when you went to sleep, you didn't necessarily bring your backpack with you. And so your ability to create your reality in that new realm and then begin to bring that new realm back into the physical space, because that anger isn't in my cells that much any longer. And I'm starting to laugh more and I'm beginning to be happy and kind of like me. Can you see how the physical, the non-physical is starting to happen? Now, just hear that. It's hard to grasp from the place that we're talking. Well, where we're talking is not 3D. But as soon as you drop back into 3D, you just forget what was said. So, but you don't forget because we're talking in that 5D new realm of consciousness. Are the dragons? Yeah, you get to see them only if you want, because otherwise they don't matter to me. You get to create on your terms. Yes. Is it complicated? No. Does it require some work on your part? Yes. Is it hard work? No. But it's different than your point of observation. So is it possible to have this come about in the physical? We're counting on it. We're absolutely counting on you doing this because you came here to do this. And so you have a choice. I can worry about the 3D and give a lot of attention to it and hope something changes, or I can start to basically recognize that when I give my attention to all of that noise, I get all that noise all over me. And I'm very ineffective at creating a new realm of consciousness. That's why we do this. That's why this whole body work is how do you get out of where you are? So I could get very passionate about this because we really are enjoying watching what so many of you are doing. So Roxanne says I have to stop, and I always do what Roxanne says. She doesn't do that. So go away. I hope this was somewhat helpful. There's a lot of questions. Please keep sending them. We'll answer them sometime in email. We'll bring them into some of these other changes. Please watch for some of these changes in the next couple of weeks. Brand new website. Community is in the process, and we're actually asking you a lot. Help us. What do you want? What would that look like? We're beginning to restructure classes so that they are not financially challenging. We hope that's so. And there's a lot of opportunity to basically play the game of change. So with that said, go off and enjoy your day. Blessings. We appreciate you.